Welcome to MBA 543, Selling and Sales Management. This is Chapter 9, and I'm your instructor, Adam Conrad. This Chapter 9, we're going to be talking about developing and qualifying prospects and accounts. Some of the things we'll talk about are the importance of developing a prospect or account, identifying and assessing important sources of prospects and accounts, describe criteria for qualifying prospects and accounts, explaining common methods of collecting and organizing prospect and account information, and describing the steps in managing the prospect or account list. So the question in terms of the first learning objective, as we talk about this, we ask whether you agree with the editor of Selling Power, Gerhard Gschwandtner, who said that the main purpose of the salesperson is to create customers. And so you may think about this and agree or disagree. Is not to make sales, but to create customers. So you think about this notion is that they're out there to create salespeople, essentially out there to convert people who are just out there buying transactionally, or essentially working on taking people that are actually making a purchase decision and making them into a lifelong customer. And the more you can do that, the better you will do in sales and the better you'll be paid in sales, typically. Prospecting is the bane of most salespeople. Most salespeople don't like the notion of prospecting. It's identifying, developing potential customers. Prospecting in business to consumer is different than prospecting in business to business. In business to business, it's often referred to as account or business development. And so the prospect is an individual or business who meets the qualification criteria established by you or the company. And so essentially what you're trying to do is create a prospect base made up of customers or potential customers. And if you're going to pull this together today, you're absolutely going to use CRM software, customer relationship management software, which allows you to not only capture all the information about the client, but to be able to move them through the steps in the process that have been created. Typically, they're created for you, unless you have to set up your own system, which I've done. Lots of work involved in doing that. Account or business development, a position description. So here's an example of primary job responsibilities and skills required to do account development or be an account development representative. So here's an example. Business development rep engages with accounts targeting key and influential contacts. The BDR will be responsible for qualifying opportunities and staging initial sales meetings for the field sales organization. What are some of the primary responsibilities? Drive sales opportunities by staging introductory sales meetings, product demonstrations, and on-site meetings for the field sales organization. Work an assigned enterprise account list, proactively identify revenue-generating customers by email campaigns and outbound phone calls. Perform pre-call planning, including but not limited to researching accounts, identifying key influencers and decision makers, and formulating initial sales plans and plans of action. And it continues. Maintain and manage the Salesforce database, including comprehensive data entry, precise follow-up planning, lead and opportunity tracking, pipeline reporting. Collaborate with marketing, support, sales management, product management, and account management to maintain an effective level of prospecting activity and pipeline growth. So you need a degree for this with 2 years business-to-business enterprise accounting development experience. Strong communication skills, ability to establish rapport with customers quickly, the ability you will experience meeting or exceeding, or have experienced meeting or exceeding prospecting goals in account development matrix, and you need to be familiar with Microsoft Office and CRM and have those skills. So you can see that the job responsibilities to be an account or business development person involves quite a bit of this. Now, this role does not describe really the field salesperson. This is somebody that's really just back end, probably very office-based, developing prospects and moving them to the phase of setting up that initial sales call. So it's quite involved, and it requires quite a bit of activity in order to make happen. So talk about the job responsibilities, but let's talk about why customers don't stick around. We call it's called obviously customer attrition. So every salesperson has to cope with customer attrition. The loss of customers over a period of time, which can be attributed to a number of causes. Unless new prospects are found to replace lost customers, a salesperson eventually faces a reduction in income and possible loss of employment. To better understand the significance of prospecting, a few common causes of customer attrition are noted. Some studies reveal that the average companies lose 15 to 20% of its customers every year. Depending on the type of selling, this figure might be higher or lower. It becomes clear that many customers are lost for reasons beyond the salesperson's control. If salespeople want to keep their earnings at a stable level, you need to develop new customers. So essentially, you have customers who had a one-time need and they met it. They moved outside the territory. The customer's business failed or merged in with somebody else. A good example of that's the hospital business, where many hospital systems merged together. A local buyer or a purchasing agent changed positions, or you lost the customer to the competition. The Ferris wheel model is aimed at supplying an ongoing list of prospects and part of the world sales record holder Joe Girard's customer strategy. Joe Girard was once recognized as the Guinness Book of Records as the world's greatest salesperson. He used this Ferris wheel concept to illustrate the relationship between prospecting and the loss of customers due to attrition. As people get off the Ferris wheel, the operator fills their seats one at a time, moves the wheel a little, and continues this process until all the original riders have left the wheel and new ones come aboard. In reality, we know that established customers don't always come and go this fast, or they don't come and go at all. The customers may stay for quite a long time. But it really goes through, and you can see the detail here where it talks about the referrals, the centers of influence, directories, where are all the places we're finding these new prospects, and we're turning them into customers, and the ones that come off the wheel, through business failure, acquisitions and mergers and so on, actually are showing people who are coming on the wheel and coming off the wheel. There are three things to improve the quality of your prospecting. And prospecting should be viewed as a systematic process. It's important that you increase the number of people you onboard in your prospecting, and that you improve the quality of the ones that you add, and you shorten the sales cycle by quickly determining which of the new prospects are qualified as to need, authority to buy, ability to pay, and authority to purchase a product. So what we're really looking for here is more prospects that are qualified that can buy and have the authority to buy. So the more of these we can put on the Ferris wheel, put on this system, and bring them through the process, the better off we are. But where do you find these folks? You can find them through referrals. I just actually talked about this in a sales meeting this morning with real estate salespeople, and that's that fully 70%, between I think it's 65 and 70% of people who list their home actually are referred to their agent. It's friends and family, it's somebody they know, they were referred directly to that person. And that's critical. And it's about 55% of buyers actually come through the same way. So referrals are an extremely powerful method of adding prospects and accounts. But then there's friends and family, and then we get into things like directories. You don't know that person, it's a lot harder to work with that person than you would with a referral or friends and family. You can meet people through trade publications or go to a trade show. You can get a direct marketing response. You reached out to them through some sort of phone call or some direct marketing, mailer, that type of thing, and they actually responded. Websites, people come in through websites. They come in through databases. They come through cold calling. Cold calling, pick up the phone and you talk to somebody you've never spoken to before. That's cold calling. Networking, you meet people at events. You connect through other people that you know at events. Educational seminars are another good example of networking. And then there's even non-sales prospecting. So, you're prospecting for something else and you come across sales opportunities as a result. Referrals is one that can actually come through other channels. So one thing that's not mentioned here is channels. So you could actually pick up prospects from another channel. So you've got a business partner that sells radiology systems in hospitals and they help you. You're selling cabinets that store sensitive things, equipment and medications, for example. And so you get a connection through a channel partner, might be another way of making that connection. Again, let's talk about the power of the referral. A referral is a prospect that has been recommended by a current customer or someone who is familiar with the product. When you build value into your sales process, you increase the odds that the customer will give you a referral. So if you've done really well by somebody, they're much more likely to help you and refer you to other clients. So satisfied customers, business acquaintances, and even prospects who don't buy, and this is very important. We have salespeople that oftentimes feel like, well, gee, that didn't work out, and that was really a waste of time. I never believed that any sales effort was ever a waste of time, because you may have made a very positive impression on somebody. I've had this happen. Made a positive impression on somebody, they left that organization, went somewhere else, and they bought our product. So it's very important to be very generous with your time and with your information so that you can help people, because you never know where people are going to wind up. So again, building value into the sales process is much more likely that you're going to get that customer to give you a referral. Just remember, referral leads result in higher close rates, larger sales, and shorter sales cycles. If you are starting a prospect list, this is something you can think about yourself. How could you use your own centers of influence to begin? So you think about the center of influence model, you think about people that you know and how they are able to help you in your career. So let's talk about, let's move on to talk about trade shows. So prospecting with trade shows and special events is an example of where you have exhibits for a particular industry. You can talk with folks that come up to your booth. You can interact with them. You can discuss things with them. They may have come to you through a referral, but that you can get exposed to folks that are exhibiting at trade shows. People walk into a booth and talk to the representative of the exhibitor. Salespeople will typically invite customers and prospects to trade shows so that they can demonstrate their newest products. The other thing you can do is have references in the trade show booth. So if you're selling something like a software product and you have existing clients that are familiar with it that can talk to new people, that's a very powerful tool. That's a little extra value there for you. A special event that you can hold could be a baseball game, a golf tournament. You could do all kinds of things to have people interact. Car companies like to have driving experiences. They'll invite their best clients out for a luncheon and let's go drive a couple of these new cars. That can be a great way to help hook people into or talk people into buying the new model. They've experienced a new model. It's like, wow, this is fantastic. I really want one of these. Social media has become a very powerful tool in finding prospects and reaching out to them these days. Some of these social media tools, LinkedIn, Twitter, TweetDeck, some of these tools that are here like Hootsuite, some of these are not necessarily the social media themselves. They're actually tools that help you. Like Hootsuite's a tool that helps you post to social media. So it will literally help you post. I actually use it to post to multiple platforms simultaneously. So I don't have to go in and post the same thing to LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, all of these different accounts. I can actually just set up Hootsuite and it'll actually do it for me, which is very nice. But it also allows you to connect with people that use the products, that are familiar with the products, and can help connect other people. So if you have positive referrals from people, they can connect with others. And so when you are about to use a product, like I've done this with other software products that I've purchased, I'll go out on some of these social media platforms and just ask the question, what do you think about this product? How is it working for you? Is it doing what you expect it to do? I'd like to do these things with it. Will that work? And literally without even asking the company, I can get feedback from its customers to give me some of that feedback. Let's talk about salespeople and their networking. Salespeople are often extremely good networkers. They network within their own organization. That can be very powerful if you need your support staff to help you out and give you a hand or go out and do a sales presentation with you. It's very important to be networked really well within your own organization. Networking within your industry is extremely important because now you can network with people and get referrals, talk to people that are thinking about certain products or services. You hear about things. When I was in direct sales and software 20 years ago, I would often find out from an executive director of a program. I'd actually find out that say, hey, so-and-so just took a job over in Muncie, Indiana. You ought to talk to them. They're a good friend of mine. And I would be able to make that connection, use the referral, and get an introduction or get a meeting so I could actually do some analysis and needs analysis for that particular client. And then networking outside your industry. You'd be surprised how many times I've made very good networking connections outside of the industry that I'm working, and actually have used that networking to actually network other within the industry that I'm in. So making connections, you never know who knows who. So it's very interesting when you make connections. I've done that quite a bit in aviation. So I actually have flown with people and I find out, hey, this person's connected to this person and I really need to get to that person and get a referral. Aviation has become very powerful for me as a networking tool. Used to be a lot of networking occurred on the golf course. Now a lot of this happens online. So let's talk about qualifying. We want to qualify our prospects and accounts. And so the qualifying is the process of identifying those prospects who appear to have a need for your product and should be contacted. So you're going to need some criteria to figure out who qualifies. So do they have a need for my product? Do they have the authority to buy it? Do they have the financial resources to buy it? And are they willing? Is now the time for them to buy my product? So, qualifying them is really a matter of figuring these things out. Are they a good fit for my product? And if they are, by all means, let's talk with them. A CRM account report is shown here because we need to collect and organize information about our account. The internet makes it a lot easier to collect information. You can literally go out to online services and find all the officers of a company. You can find where they were before. You can find out what their experience is. You can, in many cases, know what products they've used before. You can collect a tremendous amount of information. And then you can put it in systems like NetSuite, Salesforce.com. There's all different types of systems out there. And they collect the data and the information. And then the nice thing about this, particularly since you've collected all this data, if somebody moves from one company to another, you have all this data on them. When you look at the company itself and you see that they got merged into another company, you have really deep dive information that you've gathered over time to tell us as much as we can possibly know about that company. So they're going to tell us about what we know about them. We're also going to have things in the system that are built that are important to us as a company to help us qualify. What's their volume? How many employees do they have? What are the key criteria that we need to know about a company to help determine whether they're a good prospect for us? And then we fill in all the information about all the people that we know and as much of the data that we can. Because what we're trying to build is sales intelligence. Because it's necessary to have sales intelligence when the sales process is long and complex. And it goes beyond just the sales data goes beyond insights about a prospect's marketplace, their firm, their competitors, the prospects themselves. We really need as much data as we can get about these folks. What are their buying tendencies? What have they bought before? What has been in their experience? Are they friend or foe to our company? There's all kinds of things that we learn about prospects, and we want to incorporate that into our CRM system so we know the most about our clients. Managing the account base you get your best salespeople. They're gonna look to manage the account base and work with I don't want to say a set number, but they're going to work with a number of clients that's comfortable for them to be successful. You don't want to really overload salespeople with more than they can handle because we really want them to be successful. It's more important to be successful with a few than to be partially successful with more. So we have to look at the size and number of prospects we have carefully. And we have to look at what stage they are in the sales cycle. And we'll talk more about sales cycle stages later. But if we have thousands of prospects and nobody that we're working on the closing process, we're not going to be closing very many deals this month. So we need to have a certain number of people flowing through the process so that we maintain a good steady sales stream for the company. And CRM can help you quite a bit with that, basically letting you do some account analysis and basically stage things so that you can see where am I at in the stage for each different particular type of client. All right, and again, more data on the account base and phone numbers and email addresses and things like that we can use to help manage them. So this brings us to essentially what we call the portfolio model. So it's going to use, this model basically uses account opportunity, which is essentially sales forecasts, and the competitive position, the ability for us to determine where we're at in the account, to be able to capitalize on the opportunity, to figure out how much sales effort should be made on individual accounts in our prospect database. So prospects listed in the strategic account cell we have a high sales forecast and a strong position for closing the sale, receive the largest amount of effort, and the ones with the least amount of effort might be drag accounts. So we don't want to put a lot of effort into accounts that are a drag on our bottom line. And sometimes this comes down to almost like pruning trees. You have to decide which accounts are going to be best to hold on to and which ones are not. Sometimes what looks like some of the best accounts might be the most problematic or the most low margin for you. So it's very important to be able to quantify and classify your accounts and figure out what effort you should be spending on each of these accounts. We'll talk a lot about sales funnels in this class, and in any sales organization, you talk a lot about sales funnels. So what you basically look at is in the sales funnel, is you look at based on where we're at in each of these funnel stages, which typically prospects are at the biggest end of the funnel. The smallest end of the funnel are the actual closed sales or the sales about to close. And so you look at how many prospects we have, how many we've actually gotten to presentation, right? So are they qualified? They have their needs analyzed. We've done a presentation. We're negotiating, and we're closed. We've actually sold that sale or closed up that deal. And the same thing with forecast analysis in terms of dollars. So the sales prospect stage in terms of not just the quantity of them, but what do they mean to us in terms of dollars. So by essentially allocating percentages of what we think are going to close, we can essentially come up with a dashboard or a pipeline analysis to say, based on what we know and based on our historical performance and the way we've classified these accounts, we should expect to have $2 million in sales this month or this quarter. And you'll see a lot of that in dashboard. So management will often want to take that sales pipeline and turn it into dashboards and look at each salesperson individually and say, how are they stacking up? And once you start putting these things into place and you manage them real well, and some people would argue that you could feed these things all day and spend all your time feeding the CRM system. But if you look here, the opportunity owner, the sales rep, what are the sum of the total sales prices? So this will actually, at the end of the quarter, should represent what you closed and what the opportunities are. What you also tend to develop is the reliability of the sales forecast. So the sales reps that are going down through and managing these stages, oftentimes they're ranking these stages themselves and saying, yes, this one's in negotiate, this one's about to close. And if they don't close, and historically you see that the sales rep doesn't close those deals, then you'll start to not rely on those numbers quite as well. And start ratcheting the percentages around so that you can start to determine, boy, that sales rep does not forecast well, this one does. At the end of the day, what really matters is what comes out the bottom of the funnel and who sells what. So you could be sloppy at getting the stage correct, but still have great sales. Obviously, the management would love both, but they really prefer the sales part. So in review and wrap up on channel 9, in chapter 9, we've discussed the importance of developing a prospect or account. We've identified and assessed important sources of prospects and accounts. Where do they come from? The criteria for qualifying them. We've explained common methods of collecting and organizing, and that's going to be CRM. And describe the steps in managing the prospect or account list, and that's really coming out the other end of the pipeline of the funnel. And that concludes chapter 9.